Letitia Bennett held her small teddy bear close to her chest as she sat in the back seat of the social worker's car. At 7 years old, she had already experienced more pain than most people face in a lifetime. Just 3 weeks ago, her parents had been driving home from a late movie when a drunk driver crashed into them. Neither of her parents survived the accident. Letitia didn't have any other family who could take her in. Her mother had been an only child whose parents had passed away years ago. Her father's family lived in another country and couldn't be reached. This left Letitia alone in the world, passed from one temporary home to another until today. "We're almost there, Letitia," said Ms. Rivera, the social worker who had been handling her case. "The Kellers are very excited to meet you. They have 2 children of their own, a boy and a girl. You'll have a brother and sister now." Letitia didn't respond. She had learned that adults often said nice things that weren't true. The last family had seemed nice at first too, but then they sent her back after just 2 weeks, saying she was too quiet and didn't fit in. The car pulled into a driveway of a large 2-story house in a neighborhood full of similar homes. Each had a neat lawn and colorful flowers. The Keller's house was white with blue shutters and a red front door. Ms. Rivera got out first and opened Letitia's door. "Come on, sweetie, let's meet your new family." On the porch stood a tall white man with thinning brown hair and a woman with blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. They were smiling, but Letitia noticed their smiles didn't reach their eyes. "Frank and Patricia Keller," Ms. Rivera introduced them. "This is Letitia." Patricia bent down. "Hello, Letitia. Welcome to our home." Frank nodded. "The kids are inside. They're excited to meet their new sister." Inside, 2 children stood in the living room. The boy looked about 10, while the girl seemed closer to Letitia's age. Both had blonde hair like their mother. "These are our children. Alan and Melanie," Patricia said. "Kids, this is Letitia. She'll be living with us now." Alan gave a small wave, but Melanie just stared. Letitia clutched her teddy bear tighter. Ms. Rivera stayed for coffee, going through paperwork with Frank and Patricia while Letitia sat silently on the couch. Before leaving, the social worker knelt in front of Letitia. "I'll check in next week to see how you're settling in," she promised. "The Kellers are good people. You'll be happy here." After Ms. Rivera left, the atmosphere in the house changed, quickly. Patricia's smile disappeared as she turned to Letitia. "Let me show you your room," she said in a much cooler voice. She led Letitia upstairs to a small room at the end of the hall. Unlike the rest of the house, which was decorated with family photos and colorful furniture, this room was plain. It had a single bed with white sheets, a small desk, and an empty dresser. "Your clothes go in there." Patricia pointed to the dresser. "Bathroom is down the hall. You'll share with Melanie." She paused at the door. "We have rules in this house. Everyone helps out. Everyone does their part. Do you understand?" Letitia nodded, though she wasn't sure what Patricia meant. "Good. Unpack your things and come down for dinner at 6. Don't be late." The first few days in the Keller house taught Letitia exactly what Patricia had meant about rules and doing her part. While Alan and Melanie had simple chores like taking out the trash or setting the table, Letitia was given harder tasks: scrubbing the kitchen floor, cleaning all the bathrooms, washing windows. When she couldn't finish or didn't do things perfectly, Patricia would shake her head. "I thought you said you understood about doing your part," she would say. "I guess you're just not as capable as my children." At dinner, Alan and Melanie would talk about their day at school or their friends. Frank would ask them questions and praise them for good grades or sports achievements. But when Letitia spoke, Patricia would cut her off. "No one wants to hear about that," she'd say. Or sometimes, "Children should be seen and not heard." Frank never stopped his wife or defended Letitia. He simply looked away, as if he couldn't see what was happening. After 2 weeks in the Keller home, Letitia started at her new school. Patricia bought new clothes and supplies for Melanie, but gave Letitia old, worn-out items. "We're not made of money," she said when Letitia looked at the used backpack with a torn strap. "You should be grateful for what you get." At school, other children noticed Letitia's shabby clothes. Some made fun of her, others just avoided her. Letitia kept to herself, eating lunch alone and reading books during recess. Books became her escape. her only friends in a world that seemed to have no place for her. One day, Letitia's teacher, Mrs. Johnson, noticed her reading an advanced book during lunch. "That's a big book for someone your age," Mrs. Johnson said, sitting beside her. "Do you like reading?" Letitia nodded, afraid to speak. "You know, we have a small library in the classroom. You're welcome to borrow books anytime." From that day on, Letitia spent every free moment reading. She learned new words and ideas, traveling to different worlds through stories. Her grades were excellent, but when she brought home her first report card full of A's, Patricia barely looked at it. "Don't get too full of yourself," she said. "Book smarts aren't everything." That night, Letitia heard Patricia talking to Frank in the kitchen. "That girl thinks she's so special with her reading and grades," Patricia said. "She needs to learn her place in this family." "She's just a child, Patricia," Frank replied, his voice tired. "She's not our child," Patricia snapped. "We're doing her a favor taking her in. The least she could do is show some gratitude instead of trying to show up our kids." As months passed, the difference in how the Kellers treated their biological children versus Letitia became more obvious. At Christmas, Alan and Melanie received piles of gifts while Letitia got only a plain sweater and socks. On birthdays, the Keller children had parties with friends and cake. When Letitia's 8th birthday came, Patricia simply said, "I made an extra sandwich for your lunch, that's your treat." The verbal abuse grew worse as Letitia got older. Patricia would call her worthless when she couldn't finish all her chores. Failure became Patricia's favorite word to describe her. "Look at you," she would say. "Your own parents are gone and no one else wanted you. We took you in out of the goodness of our hearts, and you can't even do simple tasks right." One day when Letitia was 9, she accidentally broke a vase while dusting. Patricia grabbed her arm so hard it left marks. "You stupid, careless girl," she shouted. "That was my mother's vase." "I'm sorry," Letitia whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Sorry doesn't fix anything," Patricia said. Then she did something that truly terrified Letitia. She smiled. "I think you need to learn a lesson about taking care of other people's things." Patricia dragged Letitia to the basement. In a corner stood an old wooden pole that supported the ceiling. Patricia took some rope from a shelf and tied Letitia to the pole. "You'll stay here until you understand the value of respect and responsibility," she said. Letitia stood there for hours, tied to the pole alone in the dim basement. When Frank came home and found out what happened, he frowned but didn't untie her. "Patricia, isn't this a bit much?" he asked weakly. "She needs discipline," Patricia insisted. "My parents were strict with me and I turned out fine. Besides, look at her. She's not like our children." Letitia knew what Patricia meant. Her dark skin and African features set her apart from the Keller family. Patricia had made comments about her appearance before, saying things like, "With that skin and that hair, you should be grateful anyone wanted you at all." Letitia was finally untied and allowed to go to bed without dinner. As she lay in her small bed that night, stomach growling with hunger, she made a promise to herself. Someday she would escape this house. Someday she would show the Kellers that she wasn't a failure, but for now she was trapped. The adoption was final. On paper, she was Letitia Keller, daughter of Frank and Patricia. In reality, she was their prisoner, their servant, and the target of their cruelty. The next day, life went on as if nothing had happened. Letitia went to school, did her chores, and retreated into her books. But something had changed inside her. The basement incident was the first time, but Letitia knew with terrible certainty that it wouldn't be the last. The years passed slowly for Letitia in the Keller house. By the time she turned 16, she had grown into a tall, beautiful young woman with deep brown eyes that held both pain and determination. Despite the harsh treatment she received at home, she excelled in school. Books and learning remained her escape, her private world where the Kellers couldn't reach her. Patricia's jealousy and cruelty had only grown worse as Letitia developed into a smart, capable teenager. Any achievement or praise Letitia received seemed to trigger Patricia's anger. Frank still did nothing to stop his wife, his silence making him just as guilty in Letitia's eyes. "You think you're so special with your grades," Patricia would say whenever Letitia brought home her report card full of A's. Book smarts won't get you anywhere in life, not someone like you. Letitia knew what Patricia meant by someone like you. The Kellers lived in a mostly white neighborhood, and Patricia never let Letitia forget that she was different. While Alan and Melanie were encouraged to bring friends home, Letitia was told to stay in her room when visitors came over. "It's just easier this way," Frank once explained weakly when Letitia asked why she couldn't join a family barbecue with neighbors. "Patricia thinks it's best." At school, Letitia had finally made a few friends, other students who valued her intelligence and kind nature. Her English teacher, Mrs. Bennett, had taken a special interest in her writing skills. "You have a powerful voice, Letitia," Mrs. Bennett told her after reading an essay she had written about overcoming obstacles. "This is college-level work. Have you thought about applying for scholarships? With grades like yours, you could go anywhere." Letitia had never considered college a real possibility. The Kellers had made it clear they wouldn't spend money on her education. But Mrs. Bennett's words planted a seed of hope. Maybe there was a way out after all. One warm day in May, Mrs. Bennett kept Letitia after class. "I've entered your essay in a statewide competition," she said, smiling. "And you won first place. There's a ceremony next week where you'll receive a certificate and a check for $500. Letitia couldn't believe it. She had never won anything before. More importantly, the money could be the beginning of her college fund, her ticket to freedom. "Thank you, Mrs. Bennett," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "I don't know what to say." "Don't thank me. You earned this with your talent and hard work," Mrs. Bennett replied. "I'll need to speak with your parents about the ceremony details." Letitia's joy quickly turned to fear. "Could you maybe just give me the information? I'll tell them myself." Mrs. Bennett looked concerned, but nodded. "Of course. Here's the letter, with all the details." That afternoon, Letitia walked home slowly, the award letter burning a hole in her backpack. She knew Patricia would be angry, but maybe the money would make a difference. She rehearsed what to say, hoping to find the right words to make Patricia see this as a good thing. When she entered the house, Patricia was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Melanie sat at the table texting on her phone, while Alan was away at college, the education Patricia had proudly paid for. "You're late," Patricia said without looking up. "I was talking to my English teacher after school," Letitia explained. She took a deep breath and pulled out the letter. "I won a writing contest, first place in the whole state." Patricia looked up sharply. "What?" "My essay about overcoming challenges. It won first place," Letitia repeated, holding out the letter. "There's a ceremony next week. I'll get a certificate and $500. Patricia snatched the letter from Letitia's hand. As she read it, her face grew darker. "So you've been telling strangers about your life here?" she demanded. "Writing about overcoming challenges? Making us look bad?" "No, it wasn't like that," Letitia said quickly. "It was about challenges in general, not specific." "Don't lie." "To me," Patricia shouted. "You're trying to embarrass us. After everything we've done for you." Melanie looked up from her phone, a small smile on her face. She enjoyed watching Letitia get in trouble. "I thought you'd be proud," Letitia said quietly. "The money could help with college application fees next year." Patricia laughed, a cold, harsh sound. "College? You think you're going to college? Who do you think you are?" She ripped the letter in half. "There will be no ceremony, no award. You're not going anywhere." "But I earned that," Letitia protested, tears filling her eyes. "It's my award, my money." Patricia grabbed Letitia's arm. "Nothing is yours in this house. Everything you have, we gave you. Everything you are, we made you." Her fingers dug into Letitia's skin. "You ungrateful little failure." Just then, Frank walked in from work. He saw Patricia gripping Letitia's arm, the torn letter on the floor. "What's going on here?" he asked, setting down his briefcase. "Your charity case thinks she's special," Patricia said. "Thinks she's going to collect awards and go to college while living under our roof." Frank looked at Letitia, then at the torn letter on the floor. For a moment, Letitia thought he might finally stand up to his wife. Instead, he sighed. Patricia, maybe we should let her go to the ceremony. It might reflect well on us as parents. Wrong thing to say. Patricia's face flushed with anger. Reflect well on us? So you think she made us look bad too? She turned back to Letitia. Go to the basement. Now. Letitia felt cold fear wash over her. The basement. The pole. Not again. Please no, she whispered. Now, Patricia shouted. Or I'll call Mrs. Bennett myself and tell her what a liar you are. I'll make sure everyone knows it. Defeated, Letitia walked to the basement door. Behind her, she heard Frank asking Patricia if this was really necessary. Patricia's response was clear. She needs to learn her place once and for all. The basement was dark and cool. The wooden pole stood in the same corner it always had. Letitia had been tied there many times over the years, whenever Patricia felt she needed to be taught a lesson. Sometimes for hours, occasionally overnight. Patricia came down with a length of rope. Take off your jacket, she ordered. Letitia removed her school jacket, revealing her short-sleeved uniform shirt. Patricia roughly pushed her against the pole and began tying the rope around her waist, securing her to the pole. Arms behind you, Patricia demanded. Letitia complied, feeling the rough rope around her wrists. Patricia tied them tightly, making Letitia wince in pain. You think you're so smart, Patricia said as she worked. You think you're better than my children, better than us. She finished the knots and stepped back. But you're nothing but a failure, a charity case. No one would want you if we hadn't taken you in. Patricia circled around Letitia like a predator. Success? College? Those aren't for people like you. The sooner you accept that, the better off you'll be. Letitia said nothing. She had learned that responding only made things worse. Frank came halfway down the basement stairs. Dinner's getting cold, Patricia. I'll be right up, Patricia replied, not taking her eyes off Letitia. Our daughter needs to spend some time thinking about gratitude and her place in this family. After they left, Letitia heard the basement door lock. She was alone in the dim light filtering through the small basement windows. Her arms already hurt from the tight ropes, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the ache in her heart. The award, her achievement, her possible way out, had been taken from her. One of the small basement windows was open a crack, letting in a warm spring breeze. Letitia hadn't noticed it before. She could hear birds outside, children playing, in nearby yards. Normal sounds from a normal world that seemed so far away from her reality. Then she heard another sound, footsteps in the yard near the window. Someone was walking close to the house. Help, Letitia called out, her voice barely above a whisper at first. Then louder. Help me, please. The footsteps stopped. Letitia held her breath. Had the person heard her? Hello? A woman's voice came from outside. Is someone there? Please help me, Letitia called again. I'm tied up in the basement. Please call the police. There was silence for a moment, then. Oh my God, is that the Keller house? Who is this? My name is Letitia. I live here. Please help me. I'm Mrs. Peterson from next door. I'm calling 911 right now. Tears of relief streamed down Letitia's face. Someone had heard her. Someone was going to help. After 9 years of abuse and suffering, maybe this nightmare was finally going to end. The sound of sirens filled the air as police cars pulled up to the Keller house. Mrs. Peterson stood on the sidewalk, pointing officers toward the basement window where she had heard Letitia's cries for help. Inside the house, Frank and Patricia were finishing dinner with Melanie when loud knocking rattled the front door. Frank opened it to find 2 police officers standing on his porch. Frank Keller? One officer asked. Yes, that's me, Frank replied, confusion on his face. We received a call about a young woman being held against her will in your basement. We need to come in right now. Patricia rushed to the door. This is ridiculous. Who would say such a thing? The officers pushed past them. Where's the basement entrance? Frank pointed to a door off the kitchen, his face pale. The officers headed straight for it, finding it locked from the outside. One officer unlocked it while the other kept watch on Frank and Patricia. When they descended the stairs and saw Letitia tied to the pole, their expressions hardened. The female officer quickly moved to untie her while the male officer radioed for backup and an ambulance. "Are you hurt?" the female officer asked Letitia as she worked on the ropes. "Just my wrists," Letitia said, her voice shaking. "They're tied too tight." Once free, Letitia rubbed her wrists, red marks showing where the ropes had dug into her skin. The officers helped her upstairs, where Frank and Patricia stood with shocked expressions. Melanie was nowhere to be seen. "Frank and Patricia Keller, you're under arrest for child abuse and unlawful restraint," the male officer said, reading them their rights as more police arrived. Patricia's face twisted with anger. "This is all a misunderstanding. We were disciplining our daughter. We have—" "That right? Tying someone to a pole isn't discipline, ma'am," the female officer said coldly. "It's abuse." As the Kellers were led away in handcuffs, Letitia sat in the ambulance while paramedics checked her injuries. Mrs. Peterson came over, her kind face filled with concern. "I've lived next door for 5 years," she said. "I had no idea. I'm so sorry I didn't realize sooner." Letitia just nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. After the paramedics cleaned and bandaged her wrists, a woman in plain clothes approached her. "Letitia, I'm Susan Martinez from Child Protective Services. We need to find you a safe place to stay tonight." The next few days passed in a blur. Letitia gave statements to police and social workers describing years of abuse. She learned that the Kellers had been released on bail, but were not allowed to contact her. The system that had failed her before was now working overtime to make things right. "We found a temporary home for you," Ms. Martinez told her 3 days after her rescue. Mrs. Edna Williams is an experienced foster mother who specializes in helping teens who have been through trauma. She lives close enough that you can finish your senior year at the same school. Mrs. Williams was a gentle, gray-haired woman in her 60s who lived alone in a small but cozy house. Unlike the cold perfection of the Keller home, Mrs. Williams's house was warm and lived in, with comfortable furniture and walls covered in photographs. "Those are all my foster children over the years," Mrs. Williams explained when she caught Letitia looking at the photos. "Some stayed for a few months, others for years. They're all part of my family now." For the first time in 9 years, Letitia slept without fear. Mrs. Williams gave her space but made it clear she was there if Letitia wanted to talk. She cooked delicious meals and never once made Letitia feel like she had to earn her keep. "Your only job is to heal and finish school," Mrs. Williams told her. "You've been carrying adult burdens for too long." When Letitia returned to school, the following week, rumors had already spread about what had happened at the Keller house. Some students stared and whispered, but her few close friends rallied around her. Mrs. Bennett, her English teacher, was especially supportive. "I knew something wasn't right," Mrs. Bennett said during a private moment after class. "I should have looked into it more. I'm so sorry, Letitia." "You couldn't have known," Letitia assured her. "The Kellers were very careful about their image." "Well, the good news is that the essay contest officials heard about what happened. They're sending your certificate and check directly to you. You earned that recognition and no one can take it away." That $500 became the first deposit in Letitia's college fund. Mrs. Bennett helped her research scholarships and application fee waivers. With her excellent grades and powerful personal story, Letitia had a good chance at a full scholarship. The court case against the Kellers moved slowly. Because of their standing in the community and expensive lawyers, they managed to avoid jail time. Instead, they received probation and were ordered to attend counseling and parenting classes. The light sentence was disappointing, but Letitia focused on moving forward rather than looking back. "Don't let them take any more from you than they already have," Mrs. Williams advised. "The best revenge is living well." As spring turned to summer, Letitia worked part-time at the local library and prepared for her final year of high school. With Mrs. Williams' encouragement, she also started seeing a therapist who specialized in helping abuse survivors. "The things they said about you weren't true," Dr. Lewis told her during one session. "You know that, right?" "In my head, I know," Letitia admitted. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear Patricia's voice calling me a failure. That's normal. Healing takes time, but each day you prove her wrong just by being the amazing young woman you are." Those words stayed with Letitia, helping her push forward whenever doubts crept in. By the time senior year began, she had applied to 7 colleges, focusing on schools with strong business and computer science programs. Her first choice was Howard University, a historically black college with an excellent academic reputation. One October morning, Mrs. Williams called Letitia into the kitchen before school. A large envelope sat on the table. "This came for you," she said, smiling. "It's from Howard." Letitia's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a letter welcoming her to Howard University with a full academic scholarship covering tuition, room, and board. "I got in," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Full scholarship." Mrs. Williams hugged her. "I never doubted it for a second. You're going to do amazing things, Letitia." That evening they celebrated with a special dinner. As they ate, Mrs. Williams handed Letitia a small box, a little graduation gift even though it's early. Inside was a beautiful journal with Letitia's name embossed on the cover. "For your new beginning," Mrs. Williams explained. "To write your own story, not the one the Kellers tried to write for you." Letitia's senior year flew by. She was named valedictorian of her class, giving a graduation speech that moved many to tears as she spoke about resilience and second chances, without ever mentioning the Kellers by name. Mrs. Williams cheered the loudest when Letitia received her diploma. 3 months later, Letitia stood outside her dorm at Howard University, saying goodbye to Mrs. Williams. "I'll call every week," Letitia promised. "You call when you can," Mrs. Williams said. "You're going to be busy with your new life. Just remember that you always have a home with me during breaks." As Mrs. Williams drove away, Letitia turned toward her dorm. Students and parents bustled around, carrying boxes and suitcases. For the first time in her life, Letitia felt truly free. The Kellers no longer had any power over her. Her future was her own to shape. She picked up her suitcase and walked toward her new beginning. Howard University opened a whole new world for Letitia. For the first time, she was surrounded by people who looked like her and shared similar dreams. Her roommate, Keisha Davis, was a friendly girl from Chicago studying journalism. They became fast friends, staying up late talking about their backgrounds and hopes for the future. Letitia chose to major in business administration with a minor in computer science. The classes were challenging, but she thrived on the intellectual stimulation. Years of using education as an escape had made her a disciplined student. Professors noticed her dedication and thoughtful contributions to class discussions. "You have a unique perspective," Professor Wilson told her after she presented a business case study. "You see angles others miss." During her freshman year, Letitia kept mostly to herself outside of classes. The wounds from her past were still healing. She called Mrs. Williams every Sunday, updating her on classes and campus life. Mrs. Williams had become the mother figure Letitia had longed for, offering unconditional love and support. By sophomore year, Letitia began to open up more. She joined the Business Students Association and a computer coding club. She made more friends and even went on a few dates, though she kept people at a safe emotional distance. Trust came slowly after so many years of abuse. It was in her junior year that Letitia's life took another significant turn. Her advanced software development class required students to create an app that solved a real-world problem. Letitia thought about her own experiences and the community she had seen struggling with financial issues. "Many low-income neighborhoods are banking deserts," she explained to her project advisor. "People without easy access to banks often rely on predatory services like payday loans and check-cashing stores that charge huge fees." Letitia designed an app called Cash Flow that helped underserved communities access basic banking services through their phones. Users could deposit checks by taking photos, pay bills, transfer money to family members, and even get small, low-interest emergency loans based on their usage history rather than traditional credit scores. When presentation day came, Letitia stood confidently before her class and a panel of guest judges from various tech companies. She demonstrated cash flow's features and explained the market needed addressed. Financial exclusion perpetuates poverty, she concluded. Cash flow bridges the gap between traditional banking and the needs of underserved communities. The room erupted in applause when she finished. Her professor beamed with pride. Among the judges was Gregory Washington, CEO of SecureNet, a successful cybersecurity company. He approached Letitia after the presentations. "Your app shows real promise," he said, handing her his business card. "I'd like to discuss it further. We have a summer internship program at SecureNet that might interest you." Letitia stared at the card in disbelief. SecureNet was a Fortune 500 company with offices around the world. An internship there could launch her career. "Thank you, Mr. Washington," she managed to say. "I'd be very interested." 2 weeks later, Letitia sat in SecureNet's gleaming headquarters in downtown Washington, D.C. Gregory Washington, a tall, distinguished black man in his early 40s, welcomed her into his office. Unlike many CEOs who might delegate such meetings to HR staff, he spoke with her personally. "Your professor sent me your full academic record along with your cash flow proposal," he said. "I'm impressed. We'd like to offer you a paid internship this summer. You'll work directly with our financial technology team to develop cash flow further." Letitia could hardly believe her ears. "That sounds amazing, Mr. Washington. Please call me Gregory," he said with a warm smile. "I see great potential in both you and your app. With the right resources and mentorship, cash flow could help millions of people." The summer internship changed everything for Letitia. She worked hard, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. Gregory took a personal interest in her progress, often stopping by to check on cash flow's development and offer advice. "The key to success isn't just a good idea," he told her. "It's execution, persistence, and the right support system." As the weeks passed, their professional relationship evolved. Gregory began inviting Letitia to lunch meetings where they discussed business strategy but also shared personal stories. Letitia was cautious at first, keeping her past private, but Gregory's genuine interest and kindness gradually earned her trust. During one lunch near the end of her internship, Gregory shared his own story of growing up in a tough neighborhood in Detroit. "My parents worked multiple jobs to keep food on the table," he said. "I got my first computer from a community center program. That changed everything for me." Something about his openness made Letitia brave. For the first time since leaving the Kellers, she told someone the full story of her childhood abuse. "They kept telling me I was a failure," she said, her voice steady despite the painful memories, "that I would never amount to anything. Being tied to that pole in the basement was their way of reminding me of my place." Gregory listened without interrupting, his expression a mix of shock and compassion. When she finished, he reached across the table and gently touched her hand. "Thank you for trusting me with your story," he said. "What you survived would have broken many people. Instead, you used it to fuel your success. That's remarkable." His words touched something deep inside Letitia. No one had ever framed her past that way, not as something that damaged her, but as something she had overcome through her own strength. As summer ended, Letitia prepared to return to Howard for her senior year. Gregory called her into his office on her last day. "We'd like to offer you a job after graduation," he said, "with a starting bonus that includes funding to develop cash flow as a SecureNet product." Letitia was speechless. It was more than she had ever dreamed possible. "That's not all," Gregory continued with a smile. "I'd also like to take you to dinner this weekend, not as your boss or mentor, but as someone who would like to know you better personally. If you're comfortable with that, of course." Letitia considered his words carefully. Gregory was 15 years older than her, but she had come to admire him deeply. There was a connection between them that went beyond professional respect. "I'd like that," she said with a smile. Their first date was at a small jazz club. They talked for hours about books, music, and their dreams for the future. Gregory was attentive and respectful, never pushing for more than Letitia was ready to give. Their relationship developed slowly over the next several months, built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine care. By the time Letitia graduated from Howard at the top of her class, they were a couple. Gregory sat with Mrs. Williams during the ceremony, both of them bursting with pride as Letitia received her diploma. After graduation, Letitia began working at SecureNet while continuing to develop cash flow. With Gregory's guidance and the company's resources, the app gained attention in the financial technology world. Articles about the innovative approach to banking for underserved communities began appearing in business magazines. A reporter from the Atlanta Business Journal contacted Letitia for an interview about her background and the inspiration behind cash flow. The resulting profile mentioned her childhood in Atlanta and her rescue from an abusive adoptive family. The Kellers, still living in the same house and still on probation, saw the article. Patricia was furious to see Letitia described as a rising star in financial technology and an inspiration to abuse survivors. "She's making us look like monsters," Patricia complained to Frank. "After everything we did for her." Frank, who had grown increasingly distant from his wife since the arrest, finally spoke up. "We were monsters, Patricia. What we did to that girl was wrong. I've known it for years but was too weak to stop it." But Patricia couldn't accept that Letitia had succeeded despite her cruel predictions. She contacted the reporter, insisting that Letitia's success was just luck and that the abuse allegations had been exaggerated. When Gregory heard about this, his protective instincts flared. "They're still trying to hurt you," he said to Letitia. "After all this time?" "It doesn't matter anymore," Letitia replied. "I know the truth. I've moved past them." But Gregory wasn't satisfied. As a successful businessman with powerful connections, he had resources the Kellers couldn't imagine. He hired private investigators to look deeper into the Kellers' past and present. What they uncovered would change everything. The private investigators Gregory hired discovered disturbing information about the Kellers. Patricia kept detailed journals for years, including during the time Letitia lived with them. In these journals, she openly documented the abuse, even seeming proud of how she put the girl in her place. The investigators also found that the Kellers had adopted 2 more children after Letitia left, a brother and sister, ages 8 and 10, both of Asian descent. When Gregory shared this information with Letitia, she felt sick. "There are more children in that house? Being treated the way I was?" "The investigators haven't found evidence of physical abuse yet," Gregory explained, "but the emotional environment can't be healthy, especially with Patricia's attitudes." Letitia paced across Gregory's living room. "We have to do something. I can't let those children suffer like I did." Gregory nodded. "I've already contacted the best family law attorney in Atlanta. She thinks we can get the case reopened based on the journal evidence and your testimony." 2 weeks later, Letitia and Gregory flew to Atlanta. The city held painful memories for Letitia, but returning as a successful adult with someone who loved her made it easier. They met with attorney Lisa Coleman, who had built a reputation fighting for children's rights. "These journals are damning evidence," Lisa said, reviewing the copies the investigators had obtained. "Combined with the previous case and your testimony, we should be able to convince a judge to remove the children and revoke the Kellers' adoption privileges." "What about criminal charges?" Gregory asked. Lisa sighed. "That's trickier. The statute of limitations for most of what they did to Letitia has expired. But if we can prove ongoing abuse of the new children, that's different." The legal process moved slowly. First, they filed petitions to reopen the case and for the court to review the new evidence. Child Protective Services visited the Keller home unannounced to check on the children. While they didn't find evidence of physical abuse, they noted that the young boy and girl seemed fearful and withdrawn. Finally, a court date was set. Letitia would have to face the Kellers again and testify about her experiences. The night before the hearing, she could barely sleep. "What if they don't believe me?" she asked Gregory as they lay in their hotel room. "What if the children stay with them?" Gregory held her close. "The evidence is strong, and you're not that scared little girl anymore. You're a powerful woman, with truth on your side." The courthouse was imposing, a large stone building in downtown Atlanta, As Letitia and Gregory walked up the steps, she spotted the Kellers arriving with their lawyer. Patricia looked older but just as hard-faced as Letitia remembered. Frank seemed somehow smaller, his shoulders hunched. They didn't see her at first. Inside the courtroom, Letitia sat with Gregory and Attorney Coleman. When the Kellers entered and saw her, Patricia's face twisted with anger. Frank just looked away, shame evident in his posture. The judge, an older black woman named Judge Harris, called the court to order. The hearing began with the prosecution presenting the new evidence, the journals, testimony from neighbors, and reports from Child Protective Services about the current adopted children. Then it was Letitia's turn to testify. As she walked to the witness stand, she felt Patricia's hateful gaze following her. Letitia took a deep breath and raised her right hand to be sworn in. "Ms. Bennett," Attorney Coleman began, "please tell the court about your experience living with the Kellers." Letitia spoke clearly, describing the years of abuse. She explained how Patricia tied her to a pole in the basement as punishment, how she was treated differently from the biological children, how she was told daily that she was worthless and would never succeed. "The worst part wasn't the physical abuse," Letitia said. "It was being told every day that I was a failure, that no one would ever want me, that I should be grateful they took me in despite my being worthless." The Kellers' attorney tried to undermine her testimony during cross-examination. "Ms. Bennett, isn't it true that you've become quite successful?" he asked. "If the Kellers were as abusive as you claim, how do you explain your achievements?" Letitia looked directly at Patricia as she answered. "I succeeded not because of how the Kellers treated me, but despite it. I was fortunate to find real support after I escaped their home, from my foster mother, Mrs. Williams, my teachers, and later from my partner, Gregory. Not every child is so lucky. The children living with the Kellers now may not find the strength or opportunity to escape as I did." When the Kellers testified, Patricia denied any wrongdoing, claiming her journals were creative writing exercises, and that Letitia had been a troubled child who needed firm discipline. Frank, however, surprised everyone. "I can't lie anymore," he said, his voice shaking. "Everything Letitia said is true. Patricia abused her and I allowed it to happen. I was too weak to stand up to my wife." He looked at Letitia. "I'm sorry." "I know it's too late, but I'm truly sorry," Patricia gasped, her face turning red with fury. "How dare you?" she hissed at her husband. Judge Harris called for order. After hearing all testimony, she delivered her ruling. "Based on the evidence presented, I find clear and convincing proof that the Keller home is not a safe environment for children," she stated. "I am ordering the immediate removal of the 2 minor children currently in their care. Furthermore, the Kellers' adoption privileges are permanently revoked." She turned to the prosecutor. "I am also referring this case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges related to child endangerment and abuse." Letitia felt tears of relief streaming down her face. Gregory squeezed her hand in support. Outside the courthouse, a reporter asked Letitia how she felt about the verdict. "Today isn't about me or my past," she replied. "It's about protecting those children and giving them a chance at a better future." 6 months later, Letitia and Gregory stood in the elegant ballroom of a Washington, D.C. hotel. They had just launched the Bennett Foundation, dedicated to reforming the foster care system and supporting abuse survivors. The foundation would advocate for better screening of adoptive parents, ongoing monitoring of adoptive homes, and programs to help survivors heal and succeed. "Today, we begin a new chapter," Letitia said to the gathered crowd of supporters, donors, and media. "The Bennett Foundation will work to ensure that what happened to me doesn't happen to other children. Every child deserves safety, love, and the chance to reach their full potential." Gregory watched proudly as his wife spoke. They had married in a small ceremony 3 months earlier, with Mrs. Williams beaming in the front row. The Kellers had both been convicted of child endangerment. Frank received probation due to his cooperation, while Patricia was serving a 2-year prison sentence. Most importantly, the 2 children removed from the Keller home were now with loving foster families. Letitia made sure they received therapy and support visiting them regularly and becoming a stable presence in their lives. As Letitia concluded her speech, she made one final point. My adoptive mother repeatedly called me a failure. She tied me to a pole to break my spirit. But here I stand today, successful, loved, and determined to help others. The true failure wasn't me. It was a system that allowed abusers to become parents in a society that looks away from the suffering of its most vulnerable members. Together we can change that. The room erupted in applause. Gregory joined Letitia on stage and they embraced. Their life together was just beginning, and they had plans for a family of their own someday. But first, they would work to fix the broken system that had failed Letitia and countless other children. 1 year later, Letitia and Gregory welcomed their daughter, Hope, into the world. As Letitia held her newborn baby, she made a promise. "You will never know the pain I knew," she whispered. "You will be raised with love, encouragement, and the freedom to become whoever you want to be." The girl once tied to a pole and called a failure had transformed her pain into purpose. Her story had become a beacon of hope for others walking similar paths. And as she rocked her daughter to sleep, Letitia Bennett Washington knew that her journey had only just begun.